ISO. At its peak, Detroit was the fourth largest city in the United States. Nearly 2 million people lived there. The Detroit River was described as the busiest commercial waterway in the world. The big three automakers, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, didn't just operate near Detroit. They were Detroit. And the city's promise was simple: show up, work hard, and the industry will take care of you. Today, Detroit's population sits at roughly 639,000 people. That is a decline of more than 65% from its 1950 peak. In 2013, it became the largest American city ever to file for bankruptcy. The promise held for a generation. Then something broke it. And the question worth asking is not simply that jobs left, it's why the city couldn't survive when they did. Detroit's origins have nothing to do with automobiles. French explorer Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac founded a fort on the strait between Lake St. Clair and Lake Erie in 1701. The location was strategic, a narrow water passage controlling commerce between the upper and lower Great Lakes. For nearly 2 centuries, the city grew as a trading and manufacturing hub at the center of a vast inland waterway system. Then, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the automobile arrived. Detroit didn't invent the car, but it became the place where mass production turned the car into an affordable commodity. The city's existing industrial base, its access to steel via the Great Lakes, and its concentration of skilled labor made it the logical capital of a new industry. By 1920, the population had surged to rank 4th in the nation. The Metro Detroit region today still anchors the 3rd largest regional economy in the Midwest. The roots ran deep. But those roots created a hidden constraint that few planners fully acknowledged at the time. Detroit built its entire civic identity, its tax base, its population density, and its infrastructure around a single industry. When cities become monocultures, economically, spatially, and socially organized around one employer class, they gain enormous strength during booms and face catastrophic fragility during contractions. Detroit was not unique in this design. What made it exceptional was the scale. The first visible fracture came not from foreign competition or automation, but from geography and policy choices made within the metro region itself. Beginning in the mid-20th century, rapid suburbanization pulled residents and eventually employers out of the city proper and into surrounding Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. This was not a random migration. It was accelerated by federal highway investment, mortgage policies that favored new suburban construction, and the auto industry's own decisions to site new plants outside city limits, where land was cheaper and taxes were lower. The city of Detroit began losing residents, but it did not lose its obligations. Schools, water systems, pension commitments, and municipal services are fixed costs. They don't scale down easily when population shrinks. As the tax base eroded, the city borrowed to maintain services. As borrowing costs rose, services deteriorated further, which accelerated the outmigration of residents who had options. This is the mechanism. It is a fiscal death spiral, and once it begins rotating fast enough, no single policy intervention can arrest it. The loss of auto manufacturing jobs compounded every pressure simultaneously. By the second half of the 20th century, industrial restructuring, automation, global competition, and corporate decisions to shift production eliminated hundreds of thousands of manufacturing positions across the region. These were not just income losses, they were the removal of the economic multiplier that had justified Detroit's density in the first place. A factory worker spending wages at local shops, restaurants, and service businesses generates downstream employment. When those wages disappear at scale, the downstream evaporates with them. What made Detroit's situation distinctly urban, rather than simply an industrial story, was what the job losses did to physical space. Detroit covers roughly 139 square miles. At peak population, that space was filled with housing, commerce, and activity. As people left, the buildings didn't disappear immediately. They emptied. Vacant lots and abandoned structures created neighborhoods where the cost of maintaining infrastructure, water pipes, street lighting, fire response routes, remained roughly constant, but the number of residents paying into the system kept falling. The city was spending money to service geography that no longer had enough people living in it. This is where urban planning choices either help or make things worse. Detroit did not have an effective policy for managed contraction, a deliberate planned reduction in the city's active footprint to match its smaller population. Instead, the city continued operating as though full repopulation was imminent. That assumption was not irrational in the 1970s. It became increasingly costly by the 1990s, and it contributed directly to the fiscal imbalance that culminated in the 2013 bankruptcy filing. There is a counterpoint worth taking seriously. Detroit is not simply a cautionary tale frozen in amber. The 2013 bankruptcy, painful as it was, allowed the city to restructure approximately $18 billion in debt obligations. The city exited bankruptcy in 2014. Since the 2000s, conservation and revitalization efforts have restored historic theaters, renovated high-rise buildings, built new sports facilities, and completed a substantial riverfront project. Detroit now attracts around 16 million visitors per year and holds a UNESCO designation as a City of Design, the first and only American city with that recognition, awarded in 2015. More significantly, the US Census Bureau reported in 2025 that Detroit's population grew for a second consecutive year and led population growth in Michigan for the first time since the 1950s. That is not a footnote. It is the first sustained demographic reversal in roughly 7 decades. Whether it represents a durable trajectory or a temporary fluctuation remains genuinely uncertain. The supporting evidence is too recent to evaluate with confidence. The Metro Detroit region, over 4.4 million people, never collapsed in the way the city proper did. The big 3 automakers remain headquartered in the metro area. Detroit Metropolitan Airport is one of the most important hub airports in the country. The international crossing between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, is the second busiest in North America. The regional economy survived. What failed was not the industry or the metro area, but the specific governance and spatial structure of the city itself. A municipality whose boundaries, tax base, and obligations were calibrated for a population that left. That distinction matters for the broader lesson. Detroit's collapse was not caused by automotive decline alone. It was caused by the interaction between industrial concentration, suburbanization, that was actively facilitated by public policy, a municipal structure that couldn't adapt to contraction, and decades of deferred reckoning with an infrastructure built for twice the population. Each element made the others worse. A workable alternative, not a guaranteed fix, but a structurally sounder approach, would have required 2 things that almost no American city was doing at scale in the mid-20th century. First, deliberate economic diversification, using periods of industrial strength to build institutional anchors in healthcare, education, and technology that could survive a manufacturing contraction. Second, managed right-sizing, honest, planned reduction of the active urban footprint to match the population that remained, consolidating services and decommissioning infrastructure in areas where density had fallen below viable thresholds, rather than maintaining the fiction of full occupancy. Neither is politically easy. Right-sizing means telling some neighborhoods that the city can no longer service them at current levels. Diversification requires investing public resources in sectors that don't yet exist at meaningful scale. Both demand that city governments plan for failure scenarios, something that is institutionally difficult when the alternative narrative is recovery and return. Detroit did not fail because automakers walked away. It failed because the city had been built in a way that made automakers walking away unsurvivable. That is the planning choice at the center of this story. And it is worth noting that the cities now attracting the most concern, those built around a single dominant employer, a single dominant industry, or a single economic logic, are facing a version of the same question Detroit faced decades ago. The mechanism is the same, only the industry changes. Detroit's modest population rebound and its bankruptcy exit suggest that collapse is not necessarily permanent. But the recovery has taken the better part of a generation and required restructuring obligations that fell hardest on retirees and creditors who had planned their lives around commitments the city could no longer honor. That is the actual cost of getting the planning wrong, not just empty buildings and declining tax revenue, but broken promises to real people who had no part in making the structural decisions that failed them. Visual reconstructions are illustrative. Facts and interpretations are based on the sources listed in the description.